This time, I'll call the meeting of the Marshall City Council to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone, here this evening. We do have an agenda before us. Are there any changes to that agenda? One note I would make on the agenda is that we do have a truth and taxation hearing that the notice that went out stated that meeting will begin at 6 p.m. So wherever we're at in the agenda, we'll complete that agenda item, and then we'll move right into our truth and taxation hearing. So with that, we'll proceed with the agenda. The first item then would be to consider the approval of the minutes of our last meeting that was held on November 25th. The council does have the minutes of that meeting. Are there any corrections to note? If not, is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Amanda to approve the minutes as they have been presented. We'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll then move to a public hearing. This is a public hearing on our charter amendments. So we'll conduct a public hearing, and then following the public hearing, we'll consider the ordinance that would amend the city charter. The city has a charter commission that has met and has made some recommendations on updating or making some updates to our current charter. I'll call on Stephen Anderson, our city clerk, to present this as part of our public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Correct, as you said, this is a public hearing for some amendments to our city charter. A majority of these changes are to make the charter reflect statutory requirements and to make us compliant with what Minnesota law already has in place. One of those changes is if the qualified newspaper in the city happens to be discontinued, the city may post required notices on the Minnesota Newspaper Association's website in lieu of having the newspaper. Another one of those changes is with open meeting law. Currently, the charter says that a 12-hour notice for special meetings can be called, but under open meeting law, a 3-day notice has to be given. So that's one of the other changes that staff had recommended to the Charter Commission. Along with that, City Attorney Whitmore noticed that emergency meetings was not included in the city charter. That's one of the few cases where the notice requirement isn't required as long as it's an emergency meeting. So we had also included that as well to be amended into the city charter. Two of the other sections that we had requested are in regards to special elections. Minnesota Secretary of State has specific dates that elections can be held on. The city charter, when it was first drafted, had a 30 to 45 day limit when an election could be set. So that is no longer a valid option within the city charter. So we have to have that updated as well to be in compliance with current statutes. And the last recommendation that was made was to allow the city to sell property by resolution as well as by ordinance. Doing it by resolution helps cut down on the amount of time it takes to sell the property, and it also reduces the amount of cost to sell the property. With all city charter amendments, if it's done by ordinance, requires every single council person to be present and every council member to vote in the affirmative and for it to pass. The last minor change from a regular ordinance is instead of it being if it is approved, it takes 90 days for it to actually take effect instead of immediately like other ordinances. If there's any questions, I am available.
Okay, Stephen, thank you very much, and a very nice explanation of the recommendations that have come from the Charter Commission. There are 10 members of the Charter Commission that are appointed by the district court judge. One of those members is Amanda Schroeder. Amanda was appointed before you were on the city council. Do you have anything that you want to add from what the explanation that Stephen gave?
Not really, Stephen. Thank you. That was a very good explanation. And not a lot of extra conversation in the meeting about it, just questions of clarification. And it makes sense. And we need to be in compliance with statutes and update the charter. So.
Okay. Is there anyone present in the audience that has any input as part of this public hearing on the changes that are being recommended for our charter? Any member of the council have any questions or input as part of the public hearing? If not, is there a motion to close this public hearing?
So move.
Motion by Craig,
I'll second.
seconded by Amanda. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll now consider the resolution that would, we'll now consider the ordinance that would amend the city charter as discussed in the public hearing. As Stephen mentioned, this does require a unanimous vote of all of the members of the city council. Are there any questions about the ordinance? If not, is there a motion?
I would make a motion to approve.
Motion by Amanda,
Second.
seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. Later in the meeting, when we get to the open part, I will talk about nominations for the Charter Commission. We do have 4 members who will be completing their second term on that, so I'll discuss that at the end of our meeting. So we'll move then to the consent agenda. We'll bring the items up on the screen that are on the consent agenda.
Bob, can I Yes. Stephen, my computer's goofed up. As you read off the consent agenda, I think he can fix it. That's all I want to interject to get this
Okay.
correct. Thank you.
The consent agenda items include the South Fifth Street Saratoga Domain Reconstruction Project. We'll consider the resolution that would order the preparation of the report on the improvement. Consider the approval of the employment retirement resolutions. Consider the approval of the bills and project payments. So is there any item on the consent agenda any member wants removed for separate discussion?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Motion by Craig, is there a second?
Second.
Second by John. Discussion? If not, Jim, are you back on? Or do we need to do a voice vote?
Stephen, I wasn't paying attention. What am I supposed to do here now? Well, mine's different. It was goofed up. That's why. I'll show that into the table.
That's what we talked about earlier.
Okay. Okay, we're good to go. Thank you.
So we will move to a vote.
There we go.
We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. Okay, we'll move then to agenda item number 6. This is the Red Baron Arena Annual Report. So with us tonight is Adri DeBoer for the Convention and Visitors Visit Marshal. Adri.
Hello, all. Thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here as the senior sales manager in this role this year. Tonight, we're just going to quickly, since it's chilly out there, go over our scheduling recap, marketing, sponsorships, and finish up with a look into the future and with our goals. 25 wrapped up a full year in our new scheduling system through Finley, and that's been a great new change for us to have everything in one place. And we have seen an increase in our expo floor rentals in 2025 also. We had 5 new expo floor rentals from last year and an increase in club room rentals. We, in the spring, had the National Guard send-off of 70 soldiers, filling our bleachers in the arena and seeing attendees from over 65 communities across Minnesota, South Dakota, North Dakota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. We were approached this year by the MS Society to be the start and finish line location for Ride Across Minnesota 2025, which had 21 states represented, 2 riders, one from Switzerland and one from Sweden, and over 263 riders in total. And that was a new experience having them camp outside of the Red Baron Arena. We started an annual business booking with Runnings. This brings in employees and vendors from across the states, staying overnight in Marshall. And we have now booked 3 new trainings, which will be a total of 6 days in 2026 off of that first one in 2025. They utilize the expo floor, video board, and club room. We really have enjoyed that partnership that we're working on with them. We hosted events on the expo floor while SMSU's RA floor was under construction, including the Southwest Challenge, the Southwest West Central Career Expo, SMSU College Admissions Fair, and Hmong New Year. A lot of really, really great feedback from all of those being hosted at the Red Baron, but especially with the Southwest Challenge, which is a volleyball tournament. We had multiple teams comment to us that they really enjoyed the space and being close to the high school for proximity. And one in specific, Burnsville, stated that Red Baron gives so much more space for spectators. So that was a really great experience to host that. We have enjoyed and valued the relationship with SMSU Wrestling, hosting both a great tournament and summer wrestling camps annually. They really showcase that the Red Baron Arena is a multi-purpose facility. And we continue to apply for a minimum of 10 RFPs per year and look forward to, in 26, 12 different expo floor events already booked. On ice rentals in 25, we were honored that MAHA held the District 4 Bantam B tournament and Bantam A state tournaments. This year also brought a great relationship with Rural Edge Power Skating, utilizing daytime ice and hosting clinics as a continued renter and leading to relationships with other private rentals, which you'll see a lot happening in September through December. We welcome back the FCA hockey camp over the summer, which hosts youth from across the nation, running a week long and staying at SMSU in the dorms. And in 2025, through the Finley reporting, we're looking at a revenue of $154,000, which is 4,970 hours of utilization. That is an increase over 24, but with being in 2 different scheduling systems in 2024, next year will be much easier to compare those. In 25, we invested in the addition of Connect Hub, and that is a digital marketing campaign and platform for us. Our social media increased over the year. And with that CRM platform, we're delivering over 1,700 emails with an open rate of 31%, which is well above market average. Our website, we received over 53,000 views this year, And in 26, we're looking forward to continuing our digital media campaigns and continue to send emails and grow our leads. Dashers, and under advertising, this would be our sponsorships and things. We kept all current Dashers and businesses and increased by $5,750 over 2024 sales. This was through transitioning one of our current Dasher businesses into a complex package. So it's both the softball ball fields and the arena. And we added the Minnesota National Guard as a sponsor this year. We're very excited for starting conversations with a couple different businesses and working towards new sponsorship relationships in the future. In 2025, we completed 3 out of our 5 goals that we made back in 2023. We are looking to add 2 new goals to be completed by 2028. One being gain 3 new sponsors, and the other to retain a new annual event or regular scheduled meeting. We have businesses that book at least once a month, and we would like to see a couple other businesses added to that list of those, and those are ongoing relationships. So that's what we mean by regular scheduled meeting group. Our 1-year goals, we achieved all of our 2025 goals, adding new paid expo floor events such as the runnings training, completing email marketing automations with our Connect Hub tool, and increasing use of expo floor and ice in underutilized times through the Rural Edge power skating and summer camps such as SMSU wrestling. We added the 3 new conferences or meetings in either the club room or the expo with bookings from the University of Minnesota Extension workshop, the Southwest Region Food Shelf meeting, Xcel Energy, and Southern Minnesota Tourism Association that we hosted through a filled out RFP. In 26, we look to add 2 new paid expo floor events, creating an automated email booking process, which will help with scheduling and correspondence to the renters, streamlining sponsorships and marketing opportunities, which will kick off right in the new year strong with work on our new sponsorship packet. And lastly, hosting a new family-friendly event that will tie into 26, being the Red Barons 10-year anniversary. We're super excited for the celebrations in 2026 and showcasing this super versatile event, community, and sports location. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Adri. Any questions?
I have a quick question. Wonderful presentation. I see that one of your goals is an off-season ice tournament, which I think would be great. And just in my mind, how's that work? Is that putting ice, and Preston, you can maybe help with this too. Is that putting the ice back on for a week or so and then taking it back off?
No, this would be like doing a tournament that's a non-ice related event. So,
Oh, a non-ice related, oh.
yep. Or an out-of-season hockey tournament, so we would utilize the Lockwood rink.
Just the one arena?
Yep.
If you got a bigger tournament, and again, it's press, how hard is it to put the ice back on for 2 weeks and take it off? I know Preston's sitting back there, which I think would be
It's
great.
a lot
to
of
bring it in.
work. Our arena staff has been awesome this year, and they are many years, but
But
it's
if we
a
got
lot
a big
of work.
tournament, is it a lot of work to put the ice? I'd love to see a big summer tournament. That'd bring a lot of people to town. Is it a lot of work to put the ice on and off?
I'd estimate costs close to 15,000 just to put it on.
It does, okay.
So by the time you do a rental
when we gotta get a really big tournament.
With really big fees.
Okay, well, I just saw.
When
that.
you find that one, let us know. We're ready.
If I find one, I'll let you know. Thank you for that that answer. I appreciate that.
Any other questions or input? If not, thank you, Adri.
Thank you.
Good job.
We'll jump to agenda item number 8, this is transportation alternatives, the various grant programs. Jason.
Thank you, Mayor.
Jason Anderson, Director of Public Works, City Engineer.
Yes, thank you. So the Transportation Alternatives Grant Program is a pretty reliable source of bike trail funding or alternative means of transportation type of funding in our district. District 8 allocates roughly $1 million every year of federal funds amongst the cities and counties in our district. We've had a lot of success applying for these grant funds in the past, and we'd like to submit another application for 2030 funds. We've identified 2 different trails sections, I guess, and working with our parks team and our engineering team. We think these are 2 very good segments to get on the list. One shown on the screen now is the segment of trail from Highway 23 down to Boyer. That one we have estimated, the federal request would be $307,000. Local dollars would be just about $77,000 required because it's an 80-20 grant. The other segment is the Country Club Drive segment of trail from Southview Drive to South 4th Street, shown on the screen now. That one's in good shape today, but by the time we get around to doing the project, we think it'll be ready to have a new surface. That one's federal request of $287,000, local dollars about $72,000. So engineering fees are not grant eligible, and then there's the 20% local match that's required. Once the project gets closer, we'll start to look for other funding sources to make up the local match. Sometimes there's active transportation state dollars, and those can make up the 20% match too. If we're unable to get another grant source, the municipal state aid fund can cover the 20% local match for this, so there wouldn't necessarily have to be a local source of funding on the project. With that, I can answer any questions if you've got them, but we would recommend there's 2 different resolutions for each trail segment that we would need the council to consider.
So just a procedural question, Stephen. 2 motions would be appropriate?
Yes, you can do one for one project and then another for the other project.
Okay. Questions for Jason?
I have a question.
Yes. See.
Jason, on the trail that goes on the golf course drive, trying to think, the part that's green, if you go down, there's a part on the trail that, I guess it like shares a driveway. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so who like owns that, or how does that get paid or?
So that segment of trail, we do have grant funding for, I believe it's 2028. We have TA funds. So we are going to reconstruct that one a year before this other segment. The city with that project would take care of all the costs of that trail and tying it back together with the properties.
So does the people that live there, do they own any of that? Because it's a weird spot, it looks like a side street driveway. Because we've used the trail before, and there's people that live there or visitors have parked right on the bike trail part. So I didn't know if it was going to be like sprayed, so you know exactly where the bike trail is, or if there's the right of way. Like, I don't know how that works. Just need some clarification on that.
I might have to get back to you on that. I don't remember that situation. I'm trying to look into my map right now too. I was thinking of a different area at first,
okay.
of a different residential driveway, but I know where you're talking now, by the Golden Pond Association.
Yes.
Yeah. So the trail is in the right of way. That's in city right of way. Actually, it's the other direction, Stephen, to the south and west.
Yep,
Yeah,
right there.
right through there. I guess we could probably stripe that if we felt that we needed to. I guess I wasn't aware that there was vehicles parking on the bike trail there.
Yeah, like one day we were biking and we had to go around and then come back because they were parking on a side like a street. So I didn't know who owned that or the rights were.
And that one, that is actually outside of the segment that we are reconstructing in 2028. So that one won't be done with the project, but we could take a look at that and talk with Preston and his team and see if it's something that we want to stripe.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Just two pieces. The trail portion between Southview and 4th Street, that's also known as the Molly Lindstrom Memorial Trail. Molly was a past city council member, and it was named after her. Secondly, if approved by the council, this grant application would go to the MnDOT Area Transportation Partnership. I chair that group, so I need to abstain from any motion that would come forward.
Do you have to abstain up there then too when you approve this? Probably, huh?
Yes.
Darn it.
So, any other input as part of the, or questions? If not, I would entertain a motion first on the first resolution.
I'll make a motion, the first one.
Motion by C. Is there a second?
Second it.
Seconded by Craig. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. So then the second resolution, and this is the resolution that it pertains to the portion along Channel Park, or Country Club Drive. Is there a motion?
I'd make a motion to approve.
Motion by Amanda,
Second.
seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote.
It says there's 4.
Close the voting. And the motion does pass.
How come it says there's 4 resolutions?
Pardon me?
Says there's 4.
2 are for each one, so,
Okay,
so.
I see
your-
that.
your
So
motion-
we're doing 2 resolutions in each. Okay.
Yes. So there's 2 resolutions per project, so covered in each of the motions. Okay, we'll move then to agenda item number 9. This is the South 4th Street Country Club Drive intersection reconfiguration project. We have a resolution of support for the local road improvement program, the funding source for this grant application. Jason, once again.
Yes, thank you. Another state grant opportunity. Well, this one's a state, the last one was federal, but local road improvement program comes around every 2 years at most. There are funds in the 2025 program, 47 million available for competitive solicitation. Our last LRIP project was the Channel Parkway resurfacing, where we had $1.25 million for that. With this project, the 4th and Country Club intersection, and there's one more exhibit, if you can go to the next one, Stephen, thanks. The reconstruction would tie in nicely to MnDOT's roundabout and on Country Club Drive, work back to 4th and Country Club intersection, and then 4th Street gets reconstructed all the way up to College Drive to kind of finish that triangle. This project's on our 2027 CIP. This dates back a long time. Back in 2021, we did a traffic evaluation at the intersection. We did a study. We did a lot of work on that. We identified this mini roundabout and split T type of install as the solution to eliminate the traffic signal. So we do have grant funds already for this project. We have $824,000 in federal local road and bridge program funds. And now we're looking to add $1 million of LRIP funds to the project to help reduce the burden on our state aid account. So with the council's blessing, we would like to submit this one for an LRIP grant. The deadline is this Friday. If there's any questions, I can answer them, but there's no local costs on this project at all. We're trying just to reduce our spend on the state aid account.
Okay, questions?
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor, the PI&T committee had spent a good amount of time with Jason discussing this, and there were a couple of different alternatives that were kind of brought up, and this one works really well, and I think you called it the mini roundabout, which if you're familiar, like Highway 19 going through New Prague, there's a number of these that fit very well into kind of tight areas, so we're not burning up a lot of additional right-of-way, but they work well, and basically for larger vehicles, school buses or whatever, they're a drive over. They're just it's a little bit of a bump up curb, probably a little bit of conflict for snow plowing, but not insurmountable. But a lot of discussion, and PI&T is really hopeful that we can get this project moving forward. That intersection's been waiting for help for a long time. And I believe that's the last really city-owned set of stoplights, other than the project that we took on, keeping the one on Main and Third Street. But technically, that one is the last one that's owned wholly by the city, so it'd be nice to get rid of that, too.
Any other input? If not, is there a motion in support of this grant application?
So move.
Second?
A motion by Craig, seconded by C. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. I'll close the voting. And the motion passes. It is 6 o'clock, and so we will go to our agenda item for the Truth in Taxation public meeting that was published, that it would convene at 6 p.m. So I'll call the Truth in Taxation public meeting to order. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss the proposed budget and levy that would support that budget, and then receive any public input on that, on the proposal. And then there will be no formal action on the budget that will be taken this evening. That action will occur at our next regular council meeting, which is a week from tonight. So I'll call first on Sharon Hansen, City Administrator, to introduce this topic, and then Director of Administrative Services will go through the detail of the budget. Sharon?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate that. Just real briefly, want to thank our finance staff, E.J. Moberg and Carla Drown, who collaborated together to input all the numbers and have a lot of discussions behind the scenes. Also want to thank our city staff who did go back and look at areas of the budget to reduce. And then finally, following the not to exceed preliminary levy, I know council expressed a wish to continue to work on that budget and make some adjustments, and I'll have EJ share those details. But we did work really hard. I know Dave and EJ and I had a bunch of meetings in the last few weeks. And so I really appreciate the council's direction on this and making us try to make this better for everyone. So that's all I wanted to add, Mr. Mayor, and I can turn it back to you.
Okay, and then I'll call on E.J. Moberg then to present the detail. E.J.?
Great, thank you. Just wanted to point out that the council packet includes the budget comparison report, the preliminary budget summary, as well as the tax levy comparison by fund. Those were in the council packet for the public to see. Tonight, we will mainly go through the items on the slides present here. So again, the purpose of this meeting tonight is to discuss the proposed budget and property tax levy for 2026 and to give the public time for input period with comments or questions. Market values shown on the Truth of Taxation notices were established in the spring and are not subject for the hearing tonight. And the values for the 2025 assessment for taxes payable 2026 were discussed and established at the local Board of Appeal and Equalization. A couple of additional items to note. As part of the Truth of Taxation notices sent by the county, most residential properties in Marshall saw an increase of around 4% of a total increase, which would include the city's increase of 7.5%, as well as the county's increase of 9.94% levy increase. If a residential property's taxable market value increased by 5%, then the levy impact was around 9%. That took the 5% value increase as well as the 4% that we're seeing with no levy increase. If a residential property's taxable market value decreased by 5%, then those folks are seeing in general about a 1% decrease. So it's following that 4% pattern or in that range. At council work session, staff received direction to continue to make adjustments to do what we can to lower that 7.5% increase level. Staff have worked on budget updates and will propose a 6.59% increase when the final budget and levy are set next Tuesday. Since tonight's meeting is to address the notice that was received by the public, a portion of this meeting will refer to the 7.5% since that's what went out on those notices. So back with the slides. The next slide is kind of our net tax capacity. So you can see there by the different colors in this graph, the first line in each group, the darker blue is a commercial industrial, the orange is residential, the gray near the bottom there are apartments, the yellow are ag, and then the other dark blue are the all other properties. So you kind of just see a trend over that time period. Moving on, this is the same information as a total, but in number form instead of the pretty graph. You can kind of see that what our increases were ranged from 1.91 to 8.7% for those years. Our most recent one for pay 2026, we're looking at value increases of 2.24%. Getting into the tax levies, this is the same 5-year period. These are the tax levy totals for the city of Marshall. And then the next slide is the same information with the years. So you can kind of see here that those increases range from the 4.3 all the way up to the 9.9. So the levy history with detail on the next slide shows that of the 7.5% increase that was approved as a preliminary levy and was in everyone's truth and taxation notice, that was a total of the 10.6 million with a breakdown of almost 7.3 for the general fund, 500,000 for capital equipment, street improvement of 400,000, EDA fund of 151,000, and debt service funds of just under 2.3 million. This is the same information with the years. The preliminary levy breakdown in this sheet just kind of shows for the 2026 proposal at the 7.5% increase. This gives a breakdown of what the total is by fund. So the general fund you'll see here is the 69%. Debt service funds are 21% of our total and the like. And then finally, for an average residential property in the city of Marshall, the portion of their tax bill, we're just here to talk about the city share, but the city share of that in general is about 51%, with the county share being 21.5, the school 27.4, and special taxing districts being about 0.1%. So again, those were based off of the 7.5% levy increase that was approved by council in September. Again, we're now going to transition to some slides regarding what the impact will be with a 6.59% levy increase. So again, we're now down to 10.5%. The general fund went down, and then a slight under $1,000 decrease in the EDA fund based on some cost savings we found. What items impact our budget would be on the next one here. The biggest items, of course, for us are personnel-related costs, which are not just our wages and salaries, but also benefits. We did see an 11% increase in health insurance. Part of our savings is the fact that when we approved the preliminary budget, we thought the health insurance was going to be a 13% increase. So that's how we were able to save some of those monies as well. We do have planned use of reserves or fund balance in 2026 with this revised amended amount, the 6.59. We plan to use 68,000 out of reserves. Some of it's public safety dollars to lower impact of personnel costs for the police department, as well as then paying for a UCAP bus request out of reserves, as well as funding our contingency out of reserves. All right, so as the total budget, total revenue budget for our governmental funds, so this is just for the general fund, special revenue funds, debt service, and capital projects funds. So again, these do not include wastewater, surface water, or the liquor store, because those are funded by other revenue sources. This is just the ones that are impacted by the property tax levy. The total budget for those funds, we're looking at a total revenue budget of just over 23.1 million, of which the property tax would be 45% of that total. So that's the 10.5 is that first line there. Other taxes would be 2.7. We have local government aid of over 3.1 million. Other intergovernmental monies or grants would be about almost 1.7, and then all other dollars, charges for services, miscellaneous, and the like are over 5 million.
Those, as loaded on the bottom of that slide, would be things such as license and permits, fines and forfeits, investment earnings, and the like. On the total expenditure side, again, does not include wastewater, surface water, liquor store, but these would just be the governmental type funds. Show that we have a total budget at this point of almost 6 million. This is the breakdown by expenditure functions. So general government's almost 3.7. Public safety's at 5.7. Streets and highways, 4.8. Culture and rec is just over 4. Debt service is almost 5.2, and then all other is almost 1.1. And the all other would be our airport and the EDA. So then that gives a breakdown of the dollar for each dollar that comes in of what's covering for those general categories. Now focusing just on the general fund, this shows a 3-year comparison of the general fund by those same expenditure categories. This, I wanted to point out, is a percentage of a total for the year. So all the green ones combined, all the different colors, green, purple, red, equal back to 100%. So if you look at the first line item down below of general government, you'll see that from 24, 25, and 26, general government increased each of those years. But you look at the graph and it's going down because it's a smaller percentage of the total based on increases of the other functions. So the general government, for an example, is 22.4% of the total in 24, was 22% in 25, and is now down to 21.9%. So even with increases, that's what makes it a little different. I just thought this would be helpful to kind of see kind of trends and just kind of where we are overall as far as the proportion of the budget. Again, with the general fund, the next slide deals with by actual department, other than when we get to all others, which that last 35% would be a lot of different pie slices, so we just combined them. But this shows that our top expenditures for the 26 budget are police, streets, parks, engineering, airport. Our contribution for library is our contribution for the Marshall-Lyon County Library. Fire is the fire department. Then again, everything else is under the all other. So that would be administration, finance, assessing, everybody else. So that's the same 16.795 million that was on the previous slide. In comparison to other cities, this is very helpful, at least we believe for council, to kind of see where we're at. The statewide average for all cities for the truth and taxation notices that went out across the state was 8.7%. Again, we were at 7.5. There were a couple of our comparable cities that are used that were a little bit lower than that. Again, some of the folks have had their truth and taxation notices and or continue to work as well on lowering their own levies. We don't know what the final ones will be until after the year when the next Department of Revenue report comes out. But this kind of shows where we are in relation to some of our comparables. The next slide shows the history of local government aid for the past 5 years. You'll see that local government aid for us, LGA, is an important aspect to help with our levy. But you'll see that for 4 of those 5 years, it was relatively flat, under 0.77%, 1.47, 0.2, and 0.33 for 4 of those years. The big year was the increase from 23 to 24, which did go up to 15%. 24, if you recall, was also the year that we had a pretty large levy increase in general for the city. So we absorbed that 15%. And then we also, for 24, also that's the year we had the 9.9% increase of our own levy as well. Why I think this is important is when we start doing more comparables, you can kind of see that this is a combined property tax levy and local government aid for these same comparable cities we had the percentages up for. No, it's hard to see, so I'll just kind of say that from left to right, we're talking St. Peter, Fairmont, North Mankato, Worthington, Hutchinson, Marshall, New Ulm, Albert Lee, Wilmer, Faribault, Northfield, and Owatonna. And then the next slide gives detail of what their levy is and their local government aid. Again, as we've discussed with council, local government aid factors include population, pre-1940 housing units, total housing, community market values, and then the population age of that is over 65. So you'll notice here that, for example, one of the cities we're close to in our section of the state is Worthington, that they get almost $1 million more of local government aid than we do. Another one we've talked about in the past was like New Ulm is almost 2 million more than us in local government aid with the way that funding formula works. The next one is, again, just briefly talk about the capital equipment levy. Again, it's 500,000. The different items that are planned for purchase under that 500,000 are shown here. And some of these aren't going to be purchased. Like, for example, the motor grader is a multiple year levy. Keep setting money aside. It's already been started. I believe that the actual purchase for that isn't planned until 2027, I believe. And then one of the things that Dave threw together for this was the who pays our taxes. So this kind of shows the past 3 years. So there's three sections here. The far right one is our pay 2026 of what we're here for tonight. Shows that commercial industrial in the city are paying about 43.92% of our taxes. Residential homesteads are at 42.52%. And then apartments, residential non-homesteads, all other, and then agriculture. Again, then our final levy and budget will be adopted during the regular scheduled council meeting December 16th at 5:30. That's my presentation for this. If there's any public comment or questions, we'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you, EJ. And we'll open up for public comment as part of this public hearing. Ron, do you have? Probably, yes.
You ever wonder why nobody shows up at these meetings? I can tell you why. It doesn't make a damn bit of difference if you come or not. That's my experience. I've been here other years. I was here a year and a half ago the last time and got some excellent information from Mr. Moberg after the meeting, and I've reviewed all of that prior to tonight, so thank you again. You've got excellent city employees. I'm not here to criticize any of them. I'm not here to criticize any of you. I just think there's some way that there has to be more controls over the budget process. I dealt with budgets all my life in private sector, public sector, and I've never seen budgets come in, preliminary budgets at double figures. Or even now, you talk about it being down to 6.5 or something. That's ridiculous, to be honest with you. And I'm not going to sit here and complain. I'm going to give you a suggestion as to where you can cut some money out of the budget. The same suggestion that I gave you a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago. And Sharon, I'll start out with one question for you. When the budget information comes out to all of the department heads, are they given instructions as far as the percentage cap to look at? Because that's how it used to be done in the private sector that I worked with, or in the public sector. They'd say, your budget this year should not exceed 3.5%. And if it was anything above that, you'd have to go through a lot of steps in order to get it. But is there any kind of guideline that's sent out to the people?
I'll say that it's an expectation that expenditure increases are always to be minimal, but I'll also say that if you put out a percentage that's just picked out of the air, it's arbitrary and capricious, and it does not relate to reality. And the reality is we are mandated through union agreements, through some of the benefits and salaries. We have a lot of regulations that we need to comply with. And, even on the comparison charts that EJ showed, every city is different. And I could go through a litany of reasons why possibly the city of Marshall has higher expenses than others in certain areas, including our square mileage, stormwater requirements, et cetera. But the simple answer is it would be arbitrary and capricious to just pick a number out of the air. It has to be based on reality.
Well, I know that if I was doing a budget for the city for a department, I know I'd come in as high as I possibly could, knowing that it's going to be cut down, but there's no guidelines given from you folks as far as what they're looking at. Why wouldn't I come in at 10, 12, 14% and hopefully I end up with 6.9, which is still pretty good. You know, and how many private businesses are going to increase their wages for people by that percentage over the course of the next year? It's not going to happen unless they get a promotion. But I'll also talk about a couple of other things. I have an example, and I haven't reviewed the budget totally, although I still have all the information that you sent me a couple years ago, and I reviewed all of that. So I'm gonna put it down to the same example I gave 2 years ago. 2 years ago, according to the information that I followed up with Mr. Moberg, there was one pickup for every 1.3 street department employees. That was taking the number of pickups that you had at that time, dividing it by the number of employees. There was one pickup for every 1.3 employee of the street department. That seems excessive to me. So what I've also done since then, and I started it about a year ago, I kept watching at least 2 or 3 times a week the parking lot back here where City of Marshall has pickups. You can go by there just about every day of the week at any time of the day, and there's a minimum of 2, possibly 3 pickups sitting in this parking lot back here, and there's usually 1 or 2 behind the city hall. But yet when I see people from the city going out to talk to somebody, because I've had them come over and talk to me, they come out in their private car. So I presume they get mileage for that. But I don't know why you have all those vehicles sitting out there, not being used. And so, okay, you eliminate those and say you're talking a value of 100 grand, and maybe I'm being generous there. Is that a big number as far as your total budget is concerned? Absolutely not. It's a drop in the bucket, if that. But it may be an example of better scrutiny has to be made of some of the budget items. I watch these council meetings every week. You guys do an excellent job. I have no criticism there. But I'll say the same thing as I said a year and a half ago when I was here. I think the budget process is out of control. It's a budget process that I have never experienced in my lifetime, and I did 40 years of budgets in both public and private sector. And to see these kinds of increases year after year after year, and to feel good about you can cut it down to almost 7%. How many of you people in your private businesses are going to get a raise of 7% this year? How about 6? How about 5? How about 4? It's not going to happen. So I just encourage you folks to take a look at that. And I encourage you to, I'll repeat the same thing I asked a year and a half ago. Show me that you mean business by getting rid of a couple park pickups sitting in the parking lot day after day after day after day, not being moved. Why have them sitting there and not being used? Or have them there available for somebody to possibly use if they don't want to use their regular car? And that's what most people do. When they come to my house, they're typically, the last time I remember, they were driving their personal car. Well, I imagine they get better mileage. You know, so it's just a small example, and in the big budget, it's a drop in the bucket. It's not worth anything, but prove it. Prove it that you mean business, because it's the same story I came here with a year and a half ago. And I don't criticize any council member. I don't criticize any city employee. I've worked with a couple of city employees over the last year and a half very closely. They do an excellent job. So there's no criticism of everybody, other than perhaps the budget process. Maybe take a look at some of the little things, because if you add up a half a dozen little things, maybe you can save $500,000. Doesn't sound like a lot. In your big budget, it's not. But if you don't look at the little things, you never can pay any attention to the big ones. So thank you for the time. I'm sorry there's more people here, but I can also see why more people don't come, because it doesn't make any difference. You know, school board has to get every approval from the public. And that's difficult for them to do with a 4% increase. You're talking about a 6.5 or 6.9 and feel good about it. That's crazy. I'm sorry. That's my opinion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ron. Other input as part of the public hearing on the truth in taxation? Again, the budget will have final consideration a week from tonight, and of course, the council and staff continue to look at ways to kind of scrutinize the budget. So we appreciate the input that was given tonight, so thank you. Is there a motion to close this public hearing?
So moved.
Motion by Amanda,
Second.
second by Craig. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll now then return to the regular agenda. We're on agenda item number 10, I believe, right? So the agenda item number 10 is the Marshall Active Transportation Improvements, the RRFB and the trail extensions. The action here is the final change order and the final pay request. Once again, Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. This was the AT grant project for 2 RRFBs and a trail realignment, as well as a trail addition down by Aldi. Project was completed. We're probably should have received our state inspection on the project today. So we'd like to close this out. Final project payment, just over $14,000, results in a total contract amount of $290,670. That's slightly over, just under $2,000 over the contract amount. We had a couple adders in the project for some pavement marking removals and a few other minor changes that were missed in the plans that had to get added. Again, no local costs on this one. This is an outside grant, and then state aid dollars will cover the overage and engineering fees.
Any questions for Jason? If not, is there a motion for approval of the final change order and final pay request?
So move.
Motion by Craig, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by C. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll move then to agenda item number 11. This is the South Hill Street, South Minnesota Street, Charles Avenue reconstruction. Once again, similar action. We have the final out of this project, the final change order, and the final pay request. Note that the final pay request is a reduction from what the original cost was. Jason?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. With this final payment of about $48,800, that results in a total contract amount of $980,746.10. It's about $15,000 under the original contract amount. Project is completed. We'll work after this winter to put together assessment rolls and bring that back to the council for a public hearing.
Questions? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Jim, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Craig. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Close the voting. The motion passes. Agenda item number 11 is consider the prepayment of the unpaid lease revenue, Series 2015. This is the Tallgrass Liquor. E.J. Moberg, I'll call on you, Director of Administrative Services.
Thank you. So the Economic Development Authority back in February of 2015 issued lease revenue bonds, and then also, which we then applied to the costs of construction, acquisition and equipment in the municipal liquor store out at the Tallgrass location. We also signed a lease agreement in 2015 between the EDA and the city. As part of that lease, we are required to give the EDA no less than 45 days notice of advance payment or prepayment on any of the existing amounts. We're also, part of the agreement between the EDA when they issued the bonds was that we'd also give the bank, and the bank can be notified by either the EDA or the city council or by the city, of 30-day notice of prepayment. We looked at the option of paying off the liquor store debt back a couple years ago. At that time, interest rates were more favorable out there, so we were able to invest the monies and earn more than what we were paying on them. That's no longer the case, so we would recommend that we might as well just pay these bonds off. It's a little different than those that might be in private business. I've had that question come up of why don't we just use the monies towards a different project or piece. The issue is that our debt schedule will continue, and we might not be able to make those monies up by Tallgrass to be able to make those payments and or have to levy for them to get the other piece of equipment or whatever it is we want anyway to do that. So it just makes sense at this point to bring it forward at least for council to consider whether we should just use the available cash at Tallgrass, pay these off and save some interest costs. There's $1,020,000 of principal left. If we paid via the bond schedule or the debt schedule, we'd pay about $80,000 in interest between now and December of '29. We're anticipating if we pay these off on or by February 1st, that we're going to save over $74,000 of interest costs. So the recommendation would be to approve the early payment and to authorize us to give notice to the EDA as well as the bank.
And we should note that this is, the early payoff is really made possible because of the profitability and the management at Tallgrass Liquor, so.
Correct. We've had some very successful years.
Question for EJ?
Not questions, I just comments, because I've been one pushing that why pay it off early. And then EJ and I had the conversation about debt, because I know in the private sector, you can take debt from one, like my business is take debt from one section to another, pay it off. But as EJ and Chatty says, we can't do that in the public sector. We can't per se commingle funds as easy as you can in the private sector. So EJ and I, we had conversations about this, that at this point, in my mind, it does make sense. I know I've been one pushing, why do this when we could make more money elsewhere? After we figured numbers and EJ arm wrestled a little bit and he won. No, he didn't arm wrestle. But it does make sense at this time to do this. And because I know I've been one that's really been against doing this, I do support this now, that it's going to save us money. It is in the benefit of the taxpayers now to do this.
Any other questions or input? If not, I'd entertain a motion for the early pay.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Jim,
Second.
seconded by C. Discussion. If there's no discussion, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll move then to the agenda item number 11, consider appointments to various boards and commissions. So the council did meet in earlier session this evening, interviewed candidates or applicants for both the Convention and Visitors Bureau as well as the Library Board. Based on those applications and interviews, I would recommend that Bryce Gorder and Kathy Schlegel be reappointed to a second term each on the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and that Crystal Lawaji be appointed to her first term on the Library Board. I'd offer that as a recommendation and entertain a motion to affirm.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by C. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. So we'll move then to the Commission Board Liaison Reports. Craig?
I have nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Amanda?
I have two. Community Services, the sneak peek comes out tomorrow, and then for the brochure. And registration opens a week from tomorrow, December 17th at noon. And then the Library Board, we just basically recapped the year. They're very happy with the year. A lot of their new programs were well attended, and so they were pleased with that. And then another thing I don't think a lot of people in the community know is the library offers a tool library, Lyon County residents only, but you can rent out tools, which is really cool. I didn't know they had that. So they are also planning on expanding their arts and crafts tool library as well as kitchen tools and small appliances in 2026.
Very good. Thank you, Amanda. Amanda,
I have nothing.
from my commissions, the Southwest Regional Development Commission will have their meeting this coming Thursday of this week. John?
Public housing met yesterday. Nothing really to report.
See?
We didn't have any meetings, but the Adult Community Center had their annual holiday party, and Jasmine and I got an opportunity to go and help out. It was a 50s theme, so I didn't realize it was a theme, so I didn't wear my poodle skirt. But they had the Floras. They're from the cities, and they gave an amazing performance. It was a full house. Like, they had to bring more chairs in because we had so many people there. But I had a great time helping out and meeting a lot of the members of the ACC. So it was a lot of fun. That's all I have.
Very good. And Jim?
I have nothing.
We'll move then to council member individual items. Jim, let's start with you.
Again, I have nothing. I'm speechless today.
C?
I don't have anything.
John?
Nothing.
Craig?
I'll fill in for Jim then.
Well, let's lean back.
One of us has to grab the soapbox. I'm not going to talk about picking up dog poop tonight, but I'm going to talk about snow removal. And I just want to remind people, I talked to Jason again, the city ordinance says 24 hours after the snowfall, but I don't,
For sidewalks you're talking, right?
what's that?
Are you talking sidewalks? or-
Sidewalks, yes, yep. And people, if you have a sidewalk that runs parallel to the street on your property, please remove the snow. Now, we understand that, it can't always get done maybe right away the first 24 hours. Typically, city actions are done to facilitate cleaning for people who don't based on complaints. I think it's pretty sad if we have to wait until a neighbor's ticked off at you enough or somebody's ticked off to call in and rat you out for not moving your snow. But it's always kind of ground me, but now I've had a good friend of mine who's in a wheelchair, came up and visited us this year from North Carolina and spent some time, and spending time with him, and then again over Thanksgiving in North Carolina, went and spent a day with him at his place in North Carolina, and looking at what it's like for him to get around being in a wheelchair. And I think about him in Marshall, and he'd love to live in Marshall. But he probably won't, not because there's anything wrong with it, but I think about him every time I go clean the snow now. And I try to clean the whole block on our block to make sure that we don't have a problem. But I think about Randy every time I go out there. People, do the community a favor. If you've got a sidewalk, Jim and I spent some time today looking at some problem or question areas, and obviously there's certain areas in town that have a sidewalk and it's really not utilized right now. But someday it's going to be, but there's kids going to the school bus. I watch kids now on our street where they don't move the snow. These little kids are walking in the street because the sidewalk is treacherous. That's not how it's supposed to be. And I don't want to get lectury. It's common sense. It's common courtesy. If you have a neighbor that has a sidewalk and they're not able to move the snow, do them a favor and move the snow for them. People, if you can't do it, reach out, ask for help, hire somebody, whatever, maybe church groups or sports groups or youth groups. If you're looking for a project, look for those people that might struggle to move their snow. But, after the weather we've had today, the sidewalks that haven't been moved are going to be horrible. So that's my box. Thank you for the minute. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Amanda?
Nothing.
And Amanda?
I don't have anything.
The only thing I would mention, and earlier this evening, we discussed the city charter and the charter commission. And I mentioned at that point, there's 10 members on the charter commission. We can have, our charter says we have a minimum of 7 and a maximum of 15 members. And we have 4 members of those 10 that are terms, they're completing their second term, so they're not eligible to be reappointed. The process that we have had and used before that I'd like to recommend that we continue to use this year is that each member of the council bring forward one name of who you would nominate from your ward or area, and then those names would then be forwarded on to the district court judge, and the court judge will make the decision on appointments then. But there would be those nominations that would be important. So with the, 6 continuing that are now in their starting their second term, with 7, we're still above our minimum and below our maximum. So the assignment would be, think about over the next month, and we'll act on this probably at the first meeting in January. So over the next month, think about who you would suggest from your ward that you would nominate. I think Stephen can send out to the council the names of the individuals that are on, so you'd know, who is on, so you don't ask that same person. And then we'll come prepared, and then that nomination process, then we'll go to the next step, which is the district court judge. Does that make sense for everyone? Okay. So that's all I have. We'll move then to staff reports. Sharon?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and Council, I am working with the city attorney on Mayfac's request on leasing space. We'll probably bringing that back the first week in January. I'll have communications with the business owner who expressed some concern. And also we've had, myself and community services staff have had discussions with Derek Deitz on the 3rd Street mural. We may take some of the panels down that are damaged, and we've been talking to some local artists about next steps. So that's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any questions for Sharon? Jason?
Bid opening for the Main Street or main lift station renovation project is tomorrow afternoon. So hopefully at our next meeting, we've got good bids to share with the council. That's all I've got.
Jason, do you want to, and I know we talked a little bit earlier prior to the meeting, you want to make any just general comments about the College Drive project? I'm talking about the portion where the gas main is being worked on and replaced, and kind of what that project is and who's in charge of that project and what's.
Sure. Yeah. We've all noticed the disturbance over in College Drive over the last couple of weeks. Or the few weeks, I guess. It's Great Plains Natural Gas replacing a pretty significant gas main through our community in advance of next year's construction. So thanks everyone for their patience. It was kind of necessary work. It's a bad time of year to do it, but they're trying to get it done and get it out of the way. It's our understanding that they will be reinstating the ground generally the best they can, filling holes, making something passable out of a sidewalk to at least get us by until the reconstruction next year. So any other questions I can clear up on that, Mayor?
No, but thank you.
Thanks.
You for that. Then we'll move on then. Are there any other questions for Jason? If not, we'll move on to the city attorney report.
Hi, this is Ron Beatty sitting in for Pam Whitmore, and I do not have anything to report.
Oh, okay, thank you, Ron. We'll move then to the remaining items on the agenda that include the administrative briefs, our listing of building permits, and our listing of upcoming meetings. Is there anything further to come forward at this meeting this evening? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion.
Motion by Amanda, seconded by Craig to adjourn. Discussion on that motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. The motion passes. We are adjourned.